Hello, my name is Colin Goldberg, and I am here at the 77th Techspressionist Salon. Um, Today is December 7th, 2023, and I'm zooming in from North Bennington, Vermont. The topic of today's salon is sculpture, which is related to not only physical sculpture, but anything that could be considered sculpture, such as 3D objects in a virtual space. And I'm going to open up briefly with a little kind of intro on social sculpture. And today's presenting artists are Steve Miller and Suzanne Anker, both of whom I know from Long Island and have known for quite a while. And they're going to talk about sculptural work within their own practices. So without further ado, I'm just going to open it up. As far as this idea goes, really, I do not make sculpture per se, but I tend to like to think of Techspressionism as a social sculpture. That is, the idea of social sculpture is something that I was introduced to by one of the artists in the group named Joseph Nekvital. And I was doing a project back in the late 90s called Everbeta, which is still the name of my studio. And at that point, and the idea with Everbeta is it is constantly changing, like the web is always in beta, so it's morphed into various iterations. But at that point, it was a content network. And at that point, also, everyone was on dial-up, and there was not an audience for it. But it was, I would say, something that provided a structure for the way Techspressionism is in some regards now. That is, it was loosely based on the idea behind Warhol's Interview magazine, where artists would interview other artists, which is, something that we've been doing here within the community, but it also extended to poets, musicians, interviewing people in different disciplines. And Joseph related that to this idea of social sculpture, which I hadn't heard of before, but it was actually invented by a German artist named Joseph Beuys, who also happened to be the co-founder of the Green Party in Germany. And he created this term basically to embody his understanding of art's potential to transform society. So as a work of art, a social sculpture includes human activity that strives to structure and change society or the environment. So the central idea of a social sculptor is an artist who creates structures in society using language, thoughts, actions, and objects. And as this sort of project called Techspressionism grew from just a term that I used to describe my own work back in 2011, and in 2021, it started as an artist group with myself, Steve Miller, Oz Van Rosen, Patrick Lichty, and Helen Harrison as our advisor. We kind of started formulating the goals of the project. And when I think about it as a piece of art, it actually feels the most comfortable. That is, something that's open-ended, participatory, and essentially collaborative, and I think the idea of a social sculpture is very fitting. So anyone that wants to build out something from it, the way, say, Tommy is creating a show in Brooklyn this summer, or Renata and Tommy and a bunch of other artists are creating CYBERIANA, which is a virtual environment built within Mozilla hubs, that's starting with the community, and so on and so forth. Each one of these ideas branching off, to me, is sort of an armature where it can evolve in a decentralized way. And I think that's pretty interesting. So that's just my opening to this topic of social sculpture, since that's the way that I think I might be able to relate to this idea a little bit. But I'm going to open it up by introducing our first featured artist, who is Steve Miller. Steve was born in 1951 in Buffalo, New York, and he's a multimedia artist who makes paintings, screen prints, artist books, and sculptures. And through his art, he explores the influence of science and technology on modern culture, according to Wikipedia. According to Colin, Steve is the person that I was a studio assistant for 30 years ago, and basically learned silk screen printing, how to clean silk screens, met tons of interesting people in his studio. But I think most importantly, I saw the inside of a working studio for the first time, which was very revelatory and something that I wasn't able to experience as an undergraduate student. My professors were people that I saw inside the art building, never really saw what they were doing the rest of the time. So I learned a lot from Steve. One of the main things was he was not in the studio making work all the time, as many people think. This is what a practicing artist does. He was actually, many days of the week sending out slides back when people used slides, making phone calls, doing, all of the other stuff. And then the actual printing and making art was, that was the fun part. So it opened my eyes to like the reality of what this requires. And also, it was a great opportunity to be in a fantastic space, renovated potato barn that used to be owned by Frank Stella. One of the other assistants, Robert Barden, printed for Andy Warhol for many years. So it was just an incredible experience. And Steve has been a mentor, a friend for many years. I helped him build out stevemiller.com and to secure the domain before the Steve Miller Band guy got it. So Steve is, I think, very happy about that. And still his site is hosted at that URL, stevemiller.com. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Steve and take it away, Steve.
Hey, Colin, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and good afternoon. I appreciate being here. And I have to say that Colin it's been a collaboration because he really taught me about the internet. And back in 1992, I think is when I got my domain. I first heard about the internet and it's like, what is this thing? And well, we all know what it is now.
94,
so,
I think.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay. So can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of backed into sculpture in a way that I had not. Okay, we got to make this
Bigger.
fit the screen, right? Okay, there we go. And it was a project at Longhouse in East Hampton, New York, and I'd done it with a woman named. I was supposed to do a project with Edwina von Gogh, who was a trustee there and a well-known gardener, landscape architect, and designer. And the idea was you had to take care of a living thing in a box for the entire summer. So my idea was to make a steel cube, fill it with moss, because you were also obligated to maintain this thing. And what happened is that she bailed, and I decided to take some of my X-rays, print them on glass, slip them into a sheet of steel, and that's how I got started on this project. And then I put them in different environments. This is in Times Square in somebody's office. Again, I'd had this project called Health of the Planet, and the idea was if the Amazon were the lungs of the planet, I would have this project where I would go down to Brazil, x-ray the plants and animals of the Amazon, and do this metaphorical checkup for for the benefit of the earth. And these sculptures, I also did some sculptures which involve books because I'm a bibliophile. This image on the left is actually from the Atlantic rainforest. Those are Amazon leaves from the Atlantic rainforest. Started silk screening into books about nature, about the Amazon, and started making these book sculptures. So these are just different pages of the book. So I silk screened on every page of the book, and you could change the book, you could pull it out from the glass, and kind of make a different composition each time you flip the pages. So this is an X-ray python, again, using I embedded those Amazon plants into the glass, and, you can change the pages and open the book up. And, part of my thinking was that you could always be refreshing your eyes. So if you got tired of looking at something, and you'd have this reference to, the land and what was going on, as well as keeping your eye fresh about the environmental issues that I thought were really important. So I was silk screening again on the left, this X-ray of a python that I'd taken down there. And then I had taken the snake to a hospital, had it X-rayed. We had fed it a rat, and that's the only way you can get the snake to be dormant and quiet while you're taking the X-ray. Otherwise, they're always moving. So we fed the snake a rat, took it to the hospital, and appropriately called it Law of the Jungle. And again, I kept really enjoying playing with these ideas of books. I'm a real bibliophile. I make a lot of artist books. And this is the color version of that same branch from the Atlantic rainforest where I stayed a little bit for several years. A few weeks a year, I'd go down there and investigate. And then I took the book by Al Gore for, I guess he won the Nobel Prize for this, Earth in Balance, and I silk screen on every page of the book. And so again, you can open the book. On the left, you have images of the wires that are these crazy drawings in the slums of Brazil and Rio called the favela. And the idea was, law of the jungle, this sort of deforestation is causing, the result of this deforestation are the image on the left, and what you're losing perhaps is the image on the right. So it was a real opportunity to start playing with things that I loved. And while I don't think of these as traditional sculptures, I really felt it was a great way for me to put my love of books and the beauty of looking through an X-ray, because I think the X-rays themselves are really beautiful. And this you're looking at right now is an osprey from North Long Island on the North Fork. And ospreys actually go down to the Amazon when they meet sexual maturity. They migrate to the Amazon right after their first summer. Then they hunt and get sexually mature in Brazil and the northern Amazon, and then they come back and stay north for the rest of their lives. So this book actually had 360 page spreads in it. So the idea is you could change the image every day. So each one has been silk screened. So you can imagine it takes about a year to make one of these books, and you also have the pleasure of being able to change it on a regular basis. Here you're looking at a mirror, which is that thing that looks like an artery, which is actually a satellite map of the Amazon. And I use that in combination with the snake and these other imageries about the Amazon for this particular piece. Another version of Books and Branches called Library Branch. And here I've combined the X-ray of the Amazon plant with the wires in the Brazil favela. And then a version of these as I got more kind of elaborate with you. I started putting these images in bronze and making them really suitable for outdoor use. This is an indoor piece, combining that same image from the rainforest. And then this is actually the hand of the radiologist who has all this metal in his arm when we brought the snake to the hospital. And the book below is a book that Richard Prince got sued from called Yes, Rasta. And I loved that book as well, and had started using it on my own, and then actually met the photographer that did it and got permission to use the images. And the start of one of the themes was the deforestation. And you have here my version of a pieta, which is an endangered species, which is the sloth. They're really going through a crisis in Brazil. And this was a commission for the opening of a museum called the Broad Museum in East Lansing, Michigan, at Michigan State University. And the building in the background is a Zaha Hadid building. So I took a live alligator, put them on glass. This is the sloth with a sort of stainless steel camouflage pattern that's also at Longhouse. So I did a solo show at Longhouse with these images in Long Island. So some of the images you see earlier, but now outdoors, the glass can, on the right angle, disappear, and they really kind of float in the landscape. This is an indoor piece, and in this case, I actually took a rifle, shot the sloth through the heart of the X-ray. That is. So that's one thing. Now I got to get out of here and find how to get to my desktop again, and we'll make this quick. Okay. So the idea of, what is a sculpture, and obviously we learned from Duchamp with a bottle rack and a urinal and a snow shovel that, sculpture can have these different lives. And I started looking at ways to get the image out in the world in a different kind of way, and perhaps a more commercial way, and that was working with surfboards and skate decks. And I also like the idea that if you're moving around on a skate deck, you're actually kind of moving back and forth like the way a snake might move. So this was a pair of skate decks that I did for a company as a limited edition. And then I started doing unique versions using the Amazon images. There's actually an X-ray of a pineapple, an Amazon ferns from the jungle, kind of a group that I saw as a triptych. On the left, you have banana flowers, believe it or not. If you look at the very bottom of the board, you see these sort of groupings of small bananas before the flower has been actually pollinated. And that's what they look like in these small bunches. And we were going into the Amazon, going to the river, getting Amazon river fish. And I was doing this in Belen, which is the northern mouth of the Amazon. Was lucky enough to get a fresh water stingray, which was illegally poached. But I met the poachers, and they had a huge warehouse of live this. And by the way, the poachers, I was taken to the poacher warehouse by the head of the aquarium in Belen. So the boundaries and all this is something interesting. The aquarium was closed because of funding possibilities, problems, and then the head of the aquarium took me to the poacher um, warehouse, and I wanted one of the stingrays to X-ray. They said no way. While I was there in Belen, one died in captivity, so they brought it to me, and we X-rayed it that evening. From the zoo in Belen, we had live juvenile alligators that we fed through an X-ray machine, and I thought this was how the sculpture project with surfboard started. I was thinking like people stuff alligators and make them trophies. And while this is made of plastic, I thought it was an interesting concept to make a kind of less, we didn't kill the animal in this case. So my version of an eco trophy. And you see surfboards in almost everyone's houses, especially in Rio and in the coastal communities. Surfing is just a major activity. So again, these are the freshwater stingrays from the Amazon River. And then on this board, I actually put on the reverse of the board satellite maps of Amazon land clearing and the palm tree on the front. So it's sort of a double-sided board, and a triptych that I made of Amazon piranhas. And piranhas are an important animal because they clean all the garbage in the river. So they have a really important function to make the ecosystem, better for the other animal, the other fish and ecosystem in the water that needs a clean environment. So these guys are the bottom feeders, but they serve a major purpose. So the boards are all unique. On the right, if you can see on the bottom, I guess this is number 12. And people, some people have surfed these, but they ended up being, put in, regular environments by collectors and hung as a work of art. And just a quick view of the process, you could now actually print these things digitally on cloth, on fiberglass cloth. And this is at the shapers who's, we're laying down the cloth, figuring out how to put it on the board. And that's kind of the result when it's clean. Again, the river fish. And then finally, I ended up doing some spending time at the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. And they have all these amazing chalkboards. So I thought, wow, it really made sense to make chalkboards. And so these are the chalkboards. They're different images. Obviously, the one in the center is a straight chalkboard, something I photographed. And then I started playing in Photoshop and animating them and putting them with different kinds of paintings. This for the people on Long Island, it's X-ray of a lobster. So here's my lobster board, my only not my only non-Amazon images, but my last book was called something called Surfing the Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson, if some of you know. And so I put the Andromeda, I thought it was a perfect idea for surfing the cosmos and as an image to put on a surfboard. And yeah, that's it. This image on the left, I happen to, one of the beauties of making these objects that you can put out into the world. This is actually, I did a whole block at Bloomingdale's in New York, and this is just a detail of one of the windows. And on the right is the second page of the Surf Skate book, or it could be the opening page. And this is from Rio de Janeiro. And I saw this on a pull down, drop down gate from a business, presumably a surf shop. And so surf now, apocalypse later. Thank you. So moving along, but I guess a couple of quick questions, if there are any.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, just use the hand raise tool on the bottom. I believe it's under reactions.
I
And
saw Michael's hand up. Michael, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Hey, Steve. Wow. So I'm really blown away by those first sculptures that you showed. Where did that, number one, from just a technical standpoint, where did that come from? Is that a creation all of your own, or have you seen that done by other people? And then
That was just, I really love the way X-rays look, and I was thinking about ways to show X-rays, and I'm still thinking about actually using light boxes. But if you want something that's going to be outdoors, that was the first one was a prototype. I just took a sheet of glass in, a printer in New York, Lamont, printed directly on the glass. And I wanted to see how long it would last. And that original base was a sheet of steel, which was, like is rusted, although I've had that outside in the front of my building in a garden, and it's lasted pretty much a decade. So, but in order for the one at the Broad, then I started laminating, printing them, and then laminating two sheets of glass together in order to keep the ink away from the weather. And then I was spending so much on the lamination and fabrication. And the first piece was steel. I started dropping them into bronze. But no, I'd not seen that before. It's just a way to kind of get those X-rays literally out into the world and in nature. That answers the question.
It's brilliant. I love the book idea about being able to change that out. How is that attached to the base?
So they're just like the sculptures that you saw outdoors. It's a sheet of steel with two slots in it. One slot takes the image on the glass. Then another slot is the thickness of a book, and that's on the other side, in the foreground. And then you just slip the book in between the two sheets of glass, and you can change it as often as you like.
I'm impressed, Steve. That's beautifully presented. I'm glad you shared that today, because I'd never seen that of your work before. So that was way cool.
Well, thanks. Suzanne, I see you have your hand up.
I have my hand up because I just want to mention the new technology of UV printing, which can be outdoors and can print on surfaces such as glass, plexiglass, metal, cardboard, etc. And at SVA, we have a small UV printer that can print like from 13 to 30 inches. And we're doing a lot of experiments with it, with printing on biomaterials and other sustainable kinds of surfaces. So I think that UV printing could add to your repertoire of outdoor printing mechanisms.
Well, full disclosure, I work with Suzanne, and I've lectured at the BioArt course, and she started, if she doesn't say more about it, a unique um, uh, kind of study of another level of getting into nature and understanding how things are formed, how things grow, and that printing that you're talking about. So we did print on that stainless steel, that camouflage version, and yeah, they're very and so far they've held up really well outdoors. I've got a bunch of pieces outdoors. In my case, I am laminating them to keep the ink away from the elements, but yeah, they've lasted pretty well. It's a great technology. And again, just to give a boost to SVA, they've got every technology you could possibly imagine and a really innovative study in the BioArt program. Thanks for mentioning that, Suzanne. Renata.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for a beautiful presentation. I'm a bibliophile as well, and I'm curious about the book projects where you have them encased in glass. Did any of those go out to any private individuals? And could I, for example, if I owned it, do that changing of the pages?
Yeah, the whole idea is to change it. I haven't sold a lot of them. I do think I have one or two out in the world. I'm actually showing two in two different shows now, one in East Hampton right now at Halsey McKay Gallery, and one on the North Fork at Pamela Willoughby Gallery. But what I love about, my work is full of contradictions because, that's the book by, Al Gore, but we're cutting down trees to print the book. And, I'm trying to use the book as a point of awareness to keep your eye fresh by being able to change the pages, and also metaphorically keep fresh the discussion. Like you can flip a page and get another image. It could be wires, it could be an x-ray of an animal, could be an x-ray of a plant, but getting these kinds of things out into the world as a way to increase the audience and the eyeballs that can have access, and to bring you as a viewer into the conversation by actively picking up the book and flipping through it.
There's an intimacy to books.
I make so many crazy books. I make literally hundreds. So the real story about the books was I was making these books. They were taking, months, if not years to print. And people would look at the books and they go like, oh, it's a book. It should be $100, right? And there's no way that you can come any kind of value system based on you holding that book and thinking it's worth $3,000 or $4,000, for example. So I said, well, I wonder if I could put the book in a sculpture. You'd be buying the sculpture and not the book. So I started thinking, okay, I can make these sculptures. Now you're getting steel, you're getting glass, and you're getting this active experience. And so it was really an artist's way to increase the price point for the effort involved. But that's the hidden story behind invention. All right, I think that's good. Thanks so much, and Suzanne, looking forward to hearing from you.
Great. Well, it was a wonderful talk, Steve. And as you know, I'm a very big fan of your work. And we share a lot of the same thoughts about raising consciousness about the looming crisis of the natural world. And I think that technology is one of our handmaidens that can help get this message across. So I guess I'll share my screen now.
Do you want to give just a brief intro on?
Sure. Thanks, Colin.
Sure. I could read it off of Wikipedia, or you could.
You can
read
it
yourself.
You can
Okay.
read.
So, according to Wikipedia, Suzanne Anker is an American visual artist and theorist, and considered a pioneer in bioart. She's been working on the relationship between art and the biological sciences for more than 25 years. Her practice investigates the ways in which nature is being altered in the 21st century, and concerned with genetics, climate change, species extinction, and toxic degradation. Her work calls attention to the beauty of life and the necessity for enlightened thinking about nature's tangled bank. Anker frequently assembles with predefined and found materials, botanical specimens, medical museum artifacts, laboratory apparatus, microscopic images, and geological specimens. So I met Suzanne, I think must have been sometime in the 90s. Her husband is also a very storied artist, Frank Gillette, who worked with Marshall McLuhan and is one of the people that you'll read about in books about video art, working with video art since the 1960s. And I recently saw Frank's work at MoMA in the video art survey signals, which was pretty amazing, and actually got an opportunity through Steve to stay with him for a week and teach him Photoshop back in the 90s. And it was quite a week. And I think that's when I met Suzanne for the first time. And I know that Suzanne also, not exactly sure of your role at SVA, but I know you've been deeply involved with the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan for a long time. So so I'll pass the mic on to you, Suzanne, and if you want to take it from there.
Thank you so much, Colin. I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, and one last thing about two presenters. They both were in the show Techspressionism Digital and Beyond, which was at Southampton Arts Center and had physical works there. And that was in the summer of 2022.
Great. Well, I am the chair of the Fine Arts Department at the School of Visual Arts, and I have been chair of that department since 2005. Before that, I was chair of the Art History Department at the School of Visual Arts for 5 years. And my practice does involve innovation and the kinds of theoretical backstories to how we are citizens of the 21st century. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this series of work called Remote Sensing and Sculpting Without Hands. If this was 50 years ago and I told you I was making sculpture without touching it, you would send me to Bellevue Hospital and enroll me in a schizophrenic ward. But what has happened over the last number of years is that through data, one can now transform codes of zeros and ones into three-dimensional objects. And three-dimensional objects have a very diverse nature since the 1970s, with people like Rosalind Krauss, who wrote about sculpture in the expanded field, which was a text about the differences in sculpture that could be a video or a land artwork or something that hasn't been named yet. And in conjunction with that, Jack Burnham, another theorist at the time, were really investigating these seminal ideas. So sculpture has come a long way from what my teacher, Ad Reinhardt, has said. Ad Reinhardt was a very mystical painter and was a great influence on me during my studies with him. But he said that sculpture is what you backed it to when you looked at a painting. So it sort of didn't have the same status as a painting did, because it was something you could walk around, you could touch, and its illusionistic capabilities were not as prevalent. But in the beginning of the 2000s, I decided that I was going to use the data sets from many of my photographs or found images to create sculpture, because my background, also my early work in the 80s and 90s, was all about three-dimensional objects, whether they were made out of bronze or sugar or steel wool or plaster. It was about trying to create images that intersected nature with culture, because that was the spectrum in which we are living in. A lot of that was adapted from reading Donna Haraway's work. And here, finally, in the 21st century, I've been able to create these sculptures, which are quite unique and come from two-dimensional sources. Here you can see a variety of them. I have made at least 48 of them, actually probably more. And because they are made through rapid prototyping, which is like the creation of a sedimentary rock, the computer reads the data set and creates the image one layer at a time, at the same time applying the color. So what we have here are these micro landscapes, which look like aerial views. And even the term remote sensing is a term used by NASA because it is a kind of satellite view or viewing system that can visit places that are too toxic or war-torn or dangerous in some way to visit and get a kind of geological imprint. So these are little micro sculptures. They are about 4 by 4 by 2 inches. And what I have done recently, because the ink involved in digital sculpture is not archival, so they are now hand painted with acrylic inks as well as acrylic paint, and they are archival. But what I've learned from this process of machine learning, which is very much on the palette of the 21st century, is that the machine will read data in new ways that you haven't thought of. So if we look at the bottom left-hand side, we see a rubber ducky and a sunflower. This is kind of the idea of second nature, in which manufacturing copies the colors of the natural world to entice you to buy the piece. But if you look at the surrounding edge, you'll see a white up and down kind of line, which I had never intended to make. And this is essentially a glitch, which I am trying to now use as part of my work. These are the originals. These are the original two-dimensional photographs. So there's a whole series of translations. I make a still life in a Petri dish. It is then photographed and even printed as a two-dimensional digital print. And from there, it is now mapped in such a way where three-dimensional access is organized, so that you can turn anything that's two-dimensional into three-dimensional space using this technology, which is called displacement mapping. And here are several more of the vanitas in a Petri dish, and you know that vanitas is essentially a 18th century term about the inclination that everything that is alive has an expiration date. And my vanitas combine the idea of the manufacturing world with the natural world, the nature of representation, the nature of nature. And in this process, as you can see here in this image, we go from a still life on the left, which is an art historical genre, to a micro landscape, which is a second art historical genre. So I don't think ever before these two genres in art history have been merged. And these are examples of the ways in which new technologies can take from the history of art's database new ways of seeing the world. And here again are a number of the rapid prototype sculptures, which have been shown all over the world and are part of museum collections now that I've created an archival basis for them. And they're these little worlds that combine a kind of geography with a botany. So we have the Anthropocene here being pictured in new ways. The piece on the upper left is a very interesting one for me, because if you look closely at the left-hand side, you will see a projection of a butterfly. It's a little hard to recognize unless you see it in person, but you see that the butterfly wings have been extruded to create a three-dimensional wing. Rapid prototyping is going to be, or is already, the next frontier. There will be airplanes made by this method. There will be homes that are made by this method. And I think it is part of the way to reduce the carbon footprint in the world. The first exhibition of this combination was at the Parish Museum in Watermill in 2016. And I had 24 of the prints with 24 of the rapid prototype sculptures. And the viewers were invited to kind of match up the 3D version with the 2D version, which was not that easy, but it became a game, and people really were interactive in trying to see the differences with the same data in various dimensions. And here is a close-up. The sculptures were also placed on little glass vessels, which functioned as different kinds of optical devices, further distorting what can be seen through glass. Early microscopes operated this way, in which water was put in a glass to enlarge or reduce what was being seen. And in some of my early genetic work, glass vessels were also employed. Here's a close-up where you can see the distortion in the central image. And you can also see the irregularity of the perimeters of the sculpture, which I learned from the machine. So as we make the machine makes us. This is a zinnia flower that has been cut down and, now is almost looking like a labyrinth. Going on from there in 2019, I was invited to do a solo show at the Everson Museum, which was an opportunity for me to upscale everything. Because not only does nature grow, but ideas grow as well. So rather than 24 small vanitas pieces, I did 48 large vanitas pieces, and the rapid prototype sculpture were included in this large vitrine that you see in the center, which is called a Frank case. And here is another image. As you can see, the name of the show is 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the tipping point for the destruction of living things. We see here now, through these glass vessels, we see part of the wall works, which are again distorted, showing us alternative views of what is available optically. And if you think that was sort of the last time I did this, I got a call from the Beijing Art and Technology Biennial. We're doing an exhibition called Synthetic Ecology. And not only did they want all 48 of the vanitas and the remote sensing, but they wanted everything I could give them. So I sent them the files, and they decided that they would make 85 of these vanitas, and rather than using the Frank case, they constructed plexiglass pedestals, and I use plexiglass a lot because it disappears, like what Steve Miller said about printing on glass and having the glass disappear. So what you see here, finally, in 2022, is a full realization of this idea that started in 2016, in which we now see this concept of an environment that is related to the spectrum of the man-made and the natural as being one and the same thing. And this was at Cube, a new big space in Beijing. So thank you very much. Okay, I'm back.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. So we have some time for some questions. If Suzanne wants to call them, or
I see Steve Miller has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. And I guess when you were doing this, I guess a technical question, but said you were scanning the photos on a three-dimensional axis to get the rapid prototype projection of that axis.
I wasn't scanning them. I was using a 3D program to create a three-dimensional axis. I had done this with my Rorschach pieces, which I showed at Colin's Techspressionism show in Southampton, where I took an ink blot from Herman Rorschach's psychology tests and turned them into three-dimensional objects. So you have to create a 3D axis using a 3D program, and then the 3D program can be manipulated as to the height of the 3D protrusions. And very much like looking at a painting, the 3D program reads the colors as if dark colors recede and light colors come forward, so that it has a visual apparatus that is self-enclosed in machinic learning.
Okay, so I mean, I did not know that as well as I know you, so that was interesting. I find it really effective when you did that one slide or on your presentation of the image with the object. That direct relationship I find really exciting. So thank you.
Well, thank you for asking. And this technology is used in science and medicine, as well as surveillance and politics, because you can see things in new ways when they have a three-dimensional kind of form. I see we have a few more questions here. Cynthia? I can't hear you, Cynthia.
I think you're muted.
Thank you for an extraordinary presentation, Suzanne. I'm fascinated with your micro landscapes. And I'm also very interested in what Steve was discussing, that you went from 2D to 3D using displacement mapping. And you said it's out there in the world, but when it comes to science, when it comes to medicine, will it ever be out there in the world for artists?
Yes, and it is out there in the world for artists, but most artists I know are not quite versatile with 3D printing. So there are classes or courses that are available where you could learn these programs the same way you would learn Photoshop. You would learn a 3D program like Rhino or Maya, etc. And there are places, including SVA, that have courses in this. The technology of the machine itself is expensive, so it's not something you would do at home to get the kind of detail that I have. There are cheaper versions of these, but some of those are in plastic, and I don't work with plastic. This is plaster and a kind of resin and then archival paint on top of it, so that they are pretty much biodegradable.
I think the title synthetic ecology is also fascinating. The idea, and Steve raised it a little earlier, about the juxtaposition in the early part of the presentation of the man-made and the natural. And that just creates so many reverberations. It's like a rock in a lake.
It's true, and now we even have rocks that are encrusted in plastic that one can find on the beach, because the idea of what is nature is not even a question anymore, that we are so entangled in the cultures of the man-made and the origins of living matter, that there's no separating them out. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Michael.
Wow, Suzanne, brilliant. Totally awesome presentation. I'm fascinated with the way in which these are created, and a lot of these, I see so many similarities, and I'm sure Steve will appreciate where I'm coming from, to the micro scale of quantum mechanics, and looking at the mathematics involved. And I was curious, and if I missed this, I apologize, but were all of these created from something that was known ahead of time, or were these created and you didn't know how they were going to end up? And that's a curiosity for me, is looking at artificial life, where you can start with a premise and it can go in a number of different directions. You could create various iterations. And I was just curious whether or not that's something that you looked at, or if I missed that, and I apologize.
No, you didn't miss it, because it's both. Okay, because I actually constructed these little landscapes in Petri dishes where I knew what the items were. I would put, say, a sunflower with a rubber ducky, but the surprise was the edge of the sculpture, which was a kind of glitch in the data, which I think teaches us more about how we can extend our aesthetic experience by machine learning. And I have been trying to now use that in some newer pieces, and it's very difficult to actually repeat. So I am working with my collaborator, and we are trying to make that happen at will. Okay.
So I do have one personal question. If I were interested to find out more, is there a way to contact you? Just to like find out some more extensive information?
Absolutely. Where are you located?
I'm in Phoenix.
Oh, you're in Phoenix. Okay. I know that the University of Arizona actually has a number of bioart kinds of
Oh,
things going on there. They're connected to Singapore University as well. So I would look and see what they have, but you're welcome to contact me anytime.
okay.
And Colin has my email or visit my website,
Okay.
etc., and we can talk more about this.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're gonna get, I don't want to mispronounce your name, Malavika.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. My question is that when you are developing this, is the height of the sculpture is in your control or it goes anyhow?
Yes, the height is in my control, and I have tried different heights. If it's too high, it becomes too fragile. If it's too low, then it doesn't really address the issue of geography, okay? It looks more like a tile. And so you set the standard of what height you want. And I have found the height that is adequate so that the vulnerability and the aesthetics are in harmony.
Okay, and but I can see different variations of in one only different variations are there of the height. So that is happening because of your color, what you was talking earlier.
Yes,
that?
that is happening because of the color. And yeah, and the machine is unpredictable to some degree. You know, the way it reads data, we can't ask it a question and or tell it that it should be a little lower. We would have to change the numerical values. So there's some trial and error involved in this. But fortunately, my collaborator is an expert, so we have been able to work this out. I'm now trying a new set of work, which is rectangular, to see if that could match up with a new series of collages that I have made about climate change called After Eden. So I'm working on that because I like to see the relationship between the 2D and the 3D, because it gives you more information about what you don't know. Okay.
And what about the color application you are doing? I mean, it's a hand application.
The color application follows the printed color, except it now is hand put on top of the printed color with acrylic inks and paints.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Okay, I have some more. Lee?
Yes, when I was looking at your Petri dish sculptures, I flashed back to my childhood when I was given, and forgive me, I can't recall what this stuff was called. It looked like coral. You would organize it in water and it would grow and it would mimic coral.
I
And
remember those toys. I had some of those as well, and they were very magical. I don't know why I can't get you up here, but I'll try. 1 second. View speaker. Not there you are. Okay. Yeah, it was like a clamshell, and you put it in water, and all of a sudden some flower would emerge on a string, etc. I've also done a lot of work with coral and ceramics as well. But that's a very handmade process. For me, I choose a medium that best can be utilized with the concept involved. And sometimes starting with a concept and then trying to find the visual images takes a long time. And
yeah,
I think that that, you know, different artists work in different ways, and trying to visualize climate change. And there are a lot of images on my website about that, in which I packed a number of seasons together at the same time, so that I began calling those mono seasons, which we are experiencing in the world today.
Well,
Okay.
one of the things that fascinated me about that stuff, even though I was very young, was that different colors reacted differently in terms of the shapes they would take and how long they would last, and also the strength of the color itself. The colors, different colors would fade at a different rate than other colors would fade. The amount of organic looking detail would differ greatly from one color to another.
Mhm.
Have you experienced those kinds of things
I
as you're
have
going?
experienced them, and that is why they're all hand painted now, because of the fading. And the companies who make the machines have not yet developed archival coloring systems, and which puts artists at a disadvantage, you know, for a maquette, say for an architect who's going to make a presentation, or an engineer, it doesn't matter because it's a throwaway. But for an artist, it is not a throwaway. It is something that enters into the data bank of art history in that way. And where are you located?
I'm sorry?
Where are you located?
I'm in White Salmon, Washington.
Okay, I just have a book coming out called "What Color Is Your Salmon?" Okay. Okay, and it's all about dyeing farmed salmon. So you might look for that, because even in Washington, there's a lot of problems with the water being too warm for the salmon eggs to procreate. So this is sort of another one of my interests.
Well, one of the ways I controlled that problem as a child was I melted some of my crayons down and used the liquid colored wax.
That's great. Great. I think we have another question here with Verenda.
Vernada.
Vernada, I'm sorry.
No worries. First, thank you very much for the very thought-provoking presentations that both you and Steve gifted us today. And in listening to your presentation, I thought that basically we had come in many ways philosophically full circle to what Colin had initially presented when introducing today's session, in that he mentioned that Techspressionism is a social sculpture, and he explained the ways in which he saw it that way. And in looking at your work and listening to how the images evolve, I am brought to consider that it is in many ways a parable of how valuable, aesthetically valuable, different perspectives are. So it's showing us on a micro level what we should know, politics and other aspects of our daily lives. People tend to cling to one way of seeing things, but there's practical and aesthetic value to how things are assembled and presented from different perspectives. And I think it helps in problem solving and things such as that. So I wanted to know whether or not you see your work in this way as well, or do you feel that it is more just relevant to the artistic realm?
Yeah, I think that diversity of knowledge production is what will help eradicate some of the longstanding problems that we face today. And because stereotypes and cliche thinking is what has driven us into the inequalities of the day. So by opening up these possibilities in which technology can even become more democratic, in the sense, here I am, I'm speaking to a bunch of people in different places in the United States or other countries, where I couldn't have this dialogue unless there was this internet and digital technologies. I'm also very interested in a new project that I'm working on. I just started working on it. And I learned this from some of my African American students who told me about the seeds that their slave ancestors brought over with them, such as okra, which was never part of the American diet, or even the Thanksgiving sweet potato is a total lie, because we never had sweet potatoes in North America. So I'm working on a project about decolonizing my garden and finding out what the origins are of these plants, to give them wider perspective and to even look at weeds or invasives as sort of possible useful entities that we can appreciate. So this question of diversity of knowledge is part of my practice in aesthetics.
Yes. Thank you very much for that response. Now, regarding the glitch that you spoke of in your end product that you wanted to explore further as to how the machine put it that way, I was thinking if you had access, or whether or not having access to a time lapse analysis.
That's a very good idea. I'm not sure if we do, but I'm going to ask the person I work with, because he may know how to capture that activity if it is possible.
Yes,
yeah,
that'll give you your answer, I think.
that's a great idea. Really.
Yes, yes, and what? Thank you. One more thing. When you mentioned about the decolonizing your garden, I live in South Carolina. I'm Gullah, okay? And so my ancestors were the ones who were brought over forcefully from West Africa into the South Carolina Low Country, which extends, well, basically the Gullah country goes from Greenville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. And the agriculturalists who were among the enslaved were the ones who planned and maintained the entire rice producing process, which made the United States, of course, very wealthy.
Yes.
And yes, and now that we no longer have this rice production as part of our major economic thrust in the Low Country, people are starting to look at the basic architecture that was laid out for the rice plantations and looking at the mathematics and the geological sensitivity with which it was created. And it's becoming a part of the aesthetic presentation of the Low Country now as well. So it's like go ahead.
Great. And the same is true. I had another student who was just in a show at the Metropolitan Museum of Art about Black potters, And because there was not only rice crops and cotton crops, but there was a whole pottery industry that was started by slave owners. And these huge pots ended up recently at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, is
Mhm.
how good they were. So a lot of this unknown history, it really needs to come to the surface, because it is part of what made America America. And credit should be given where credit is due.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Colin.
Thank you. So Suzanne, I'm just going to make a real quick question, because I think after this, we just should jump to the CYBERIANA so it gets in the recording.
Sure.
But I was just wondering, do you ever rephotograph these pieces from the top so you can compare, the extruded version with the original photograph that it's based on? I'd be interested to see, side by side, like almost like a diptych. I think that would be pretty interesting.
I do photograph them from the top because I make certificates of authenticity, and that's how I archive them. But they do not look exactly like the 2D versions. You could see that they're still three-dimensional, and you might have a hint of a butterfly wing and an outline, but some of them are really difficult to match up.
Well, I think that would make it interesting. And I remember seeing this whole body of work in your studio when I went over to look at the Rorschach pieces, and I had no idea that this was the process that they were based on. I really looked at them. I saw somebody, I think it was Lee in the chat, said it reminded him of the grow your own crystal kits. And that's what I had thought, actually, where they were somehow related to crystalline growth or something like that. I mean, they really look like stalagmites in some way. And then, to see that there are these extrusions or sort of depth maps of these photographs is really fascinating. So, I really appreciate both presentations. They were really interesting and enlightening. And, I just like to thank both you and Steve for joining us today. So, yeah. Very interesting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Colin, as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have to go teach my class, so I'm going to have to leave everyone, but it was very nice to meet everyone, and I will come back and listen to Siberia at another time. Okay,
Excellent. Thanks so much, Suzanne.
thank you.
So Renata, do you want to just jump in? And I don't know if Stephen or you want to talk a little bit about CYBERIANA and the sort of the next steps, I guess you're going to talk a little bit about. You're muted, Renata.
Before that, is there going to be time for Jan to present her sculpture? Jan,
okay.
Jan Swinburne. And then I don't know how the recording works, but could Michael?
I lost you there.
Oh, I'm just inquiring about how recording works.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just basically, it's rolling now, and I mean, we could make this longer than an hour and a half if you think it's worthwhile. Is the CYBERIANA discussion going to be sort of a Q&A?
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be a Q&A.
Gotcha.
Is there any way to end the salon, and then start back up again and do a separate recording just for CYBERIANA? That way.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, why don't we do that? I'm unfortunately not going to be able to stay too long because I have to run out and pick up my daughter from elementary school pretty soon. But I could definitely throw host to one of you guys once we restart the recording. And I believe, well, Well, actually, maybe whoever it is that's the host could initiate the recording, just so I know, because I'm not 100% sure if I start the recording, then if a co-host could stop it. But at any rate, that's a really good suggestion. So why don't we do that? And we can move on to the remaining presenters on this topic of sculpture. So Jan, did you want to go?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. It's just a quick thing. So
And do you want to do a quick intro just so people know?
yeah,
about
let me
you?
see if I can screen share. So let me try and screen share my desktop. Okay, share. All right, and I have to move this box. Okay. Bear with me a second. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay, so those of you who know my practice, can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. I've been working on these sculptures that are based on sound, and it's interesting today that, you know, the presenter talked about the depth. This is CNC processing, so it's also machine learning based. So what I've done, this is, for those of you who don't know, is my voice captured and carved and hand worked. And the word that I'm saying is time. And this one is the same word, but a different waveform. And so I decided to do an artist multiple, and I'm interested in sort of how the voice, the power of the voice and everything like that. So these are the designs that I work from. And essentially, my signature is my voice in these, and they both say time. It's loosely based on, apparently James Joyce was said to say, quoted as saying, time is, time was, and is no more. And I really like the idea of how this translated into, you know, an artist multiple as a coin. And these are nickel plated brass, and they come in, they're an inch in diameter and a little bit about the thickness of a loonie for those of you who know the Canadian dollar. And I've developed a card as well that comes with this that reflects that. And so it's an open edition. And I just thought there were a lot of interesting ideas behind this that go further than like simple things like money talks and all those illusions, but also thinking about equity and being able to make something that's, you know, financially accessible as well, but alludes to all the themes around the voice, the power of the voice, the power of money. And I wrote an essay years ago in a book called Money, Value, Art. And I was really interested to sort of revisit that theme. So that's what I had to tell you today. I just wanted to keep that short. And
Jen, are these available for sale to us?
yes, they are. 15 if you're in Canada, Canadian dollars, or 15 USD outside of Canada is what I'm making them available for. And you can just get in touch with me through my website if you're interested in them. And they come in this little package. And I can show you a little bit what actual coin is. Forgive my tremor, but it's like, it's hard to see. So anyways, yeah, I thought there was, it's more of a concept project. So, but I'm calling it pocket sculpture because I don't really think of it in terms of a coin per se. It's more token. And even that with the language involved, you know, tokenism in speech, and there's just lots of associations that happen there. So anyways, that's been my project for the last little while, and I wanted to bring it to Techspressionism first. A lot of the processes I use in processing my voice are what we're discussed today, and that's really interesting stuff to me. So thanks.
So do we have any questions for Jan?
Nope.
All right. Well, I guess what we could do is, bring this recording to a close, and we could start recording a new session. Oh, Karen, do you have a question?
Well, I have a presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But no, that's okay. I just didn't know where to fit it, but maybe right now is a good time because Renata asked me to show what I did on Mozilla Hubs for myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I put it on this recording, and then so as not to confuse the CYBERIANA talk.
That sounds good. Yeah, absolutely.
Do it now? Okay.
Yeah, we started, after 12, so there's definitely time, and there's really no hard and fast rule for this.
Well, I'll go as fast as I can.
But thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome. I just have to get to the right one here. There's so much up on my screen. I assume you can see 3D?
Yep.
Good. Now the question always is, oh, come on. Zoom gets in the way of the play button. There we go. So you all know normally I do fine art animation, but when Colin brought up the topic of sculpture, it kind of threw me back to my 1980s model building phase where I was building commercial models in order to keep the lights on. So I've been doing models for a long time. This is a piece I did for a show you'll see in a few seconds. And these are a few samples of the commercial models we used to build with designers. It was pre-digital, so this is what the designers would take to meetings. And from really all full decade of the 1980s, this is really when artists could make good money at this, and then it went digital. This one here is another one done with the same designer. This was for a proposal for a Reebok store at Faneuil Hall in Boston. This is a model and the actual 40-foot toy train we had to build for a toy store. It's all laminate on the train, not painted. This is the model and the actual train subway car we built that crashed through the wall for Strawberry Records in Downtown Crossing in Boston. It was their room to sell all the tickets for concerts at the time. And in the same floor right across the street from that train, they wanted an oldies diner. And so we had to build this diner. And my zoom is kind of in the middle, but if you look on this diner and you see the word oldies through the window, there should be like a little red door back there. That's a 5x7 elevator, and this was on the 4th floor. So everything with the subway car and the diner had to fit into that 5x7 elevator. So these were actually jigsaw puzzles that were on our dinner table. The family would try to figure out how to get into a 5x7-inch box for a year. This is the other project you've seen before, the Playtime in the Making project. I worked for 3.5 years as producer and artist, along with the other artists. This is the model. It's about 4, almost 5 feet long. It's now in the Wisconsin Racine Museum of Art. And there's the actual installation in the museum. Why am I showing you this? Because Tommy and Renata and Steve and Michael decided we're going to have CYBERIANA, and you threw me right back to my model making days where I could make things really, really tiny. The plane on the left is only got a 1-inch wingspan. The one on the right has got a 20-inch wingspan. And then you gave me hubs. So what I did was play till I could almost break the thing. And this is what I came up with, is a 3D village with 3 galleries and a full cinema. This I've built for my own sake. So I put all the bells and whistles in that I could. And this is my trying to track for you on a laptop. So sorry for the little jerkiness here. It has these 3 different levels because the cinema has to go down with the seating slant. There are 3 greenhouses across the back. There's your ramp going through. You'll see different changes in these, like those columns for the street signs later get replaced with actual light posts. There's from overhead. There's the walkable area. I found out with Mozilla hubs is to keep the walkable area just where you want to be, because otherwise it uses up a lot of memory. So you take the walkable areas off the trees and places like roofs of houses that you don't want your avatars to go. This is looking up at the mural, circle mural in the main gallery. Now you're inside the cinema. In the cinema, I had a problem because the cinema box that I used from Sketchfab, you can't get through the wall. You can see through the wall, but you can't get through the wall. So I had to narrow one dimension of the box and then bring in the floor plate so the avatars could come into the room. So there I am going through the studs of the wall into the theater, and then it's going to swing back again. I hope this is working okay on Zoom, because I know Zoom doesn't do animation well.
No, this works. It's working very well.
Oh, good, good. And there's from the other point of view. The exit doors is, I'm going to slide you right up the stairs as an avatar, right into the theater, stop at the doorway, and then the avatar can go right up to the edge and be in the cinema. This is going to play for a little under a minute, like 40 seconds, but I think it's going to swing you around eventually and take you out and up the stairs to the main gallery. So like I said, the exit doors from Sketchfab, you can't go through them, so I had to leave these openings. So there's all kinds of different interesting spatial challenges on the building this that I found interesting compared to doing a manual model, because you're literally walking inside a model versus building it from the outside looking in. So then I'm going to go upstairs. And I'm going to swing you around into the main gallery. Now, in the main gallery, there's artwork on both walls and one piece of large artwork in each of the greenhouses hanging off the back. But also in each one of the galleries, there's one animation. And this is something I'm having trouble with CYBERIANA, getting the animations in, so I would love to be in on that discussion. Doing my own, I uploaded directly to Mozilla Hub's server, so I have no trouble. The second gallery to the right of the main gallery, right there. One of these is an animation, and there we go. I'm going to bring you right in. Getting the numbers on the wall was not easy. I couldn't see them. It took a lot of experimentation, but it gives you an idea, a quick run through of the galleries. Oops, went the wrong way. Sorry, guys. This is the other gallery to the left of the main gallery. And I don't think I have an animation slide, but the yellow piece in the center of the lower wall is an animation. That's when you get inside the greenhouse. That's what it looks like.
Are the animations GIFs or are they movies?
They're actually my MOV MP3s that I uploaded to.
Oh, MP4?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
But I made
great.
them really, really small with handbrake and stuff and made them.
Oh, super. Okay,
Yeah, real tiny.
thanks.
But that's directly loading into my account. That's easy. It's the URL that I'm having trouble, that link. So there it is, overview. And I built it inside this box, and that's my world, guys. So I'm going to stop sharing here. If I can
Hold
get
on.
my cursor to get up there. Escape. Yeah, there we go. So hopefully that's an introduction to the Hub's Mozilla World discussion that's coming up next in the next recording.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Karen. Yeah, now I'm like, wow, you know, I don't know if I haven't even really started on mine yet, to be honest. So I'm like, okay.
That's not going to be in CYBERIANA because I think I'd crash the system. It's pretty memory heavy. I just built it to explore what can the application do? How far can it go?
Very interesting. Now, I was thinking, you know, we could actually just keep this recording going. That way people don't have to go somewhere else to find the session. I mean, that might even be better. Otherwise, we're going to have to post it somewhere other than the Salon page. I mean, it could live on the CYBERIANA page too. That's another option where, you know, the form lives to submit your URL and stuff. Renata, like, what do you think would be the best?
I like the idea of attaching our Q&A to this recording, if that's feasible, and then it can go on the CYBERIANA page as well as the Salon YouTube.
Okay. Would you be comfortable being the host? Like, if I gave you host capability to try to be able to stop the recording? I just Googled it and it says hosts and co-hosts should be able to stop a recording in progress. So I might have to leave before the conversation is done.
Okay, would you be able to ask Michael that question? Because I might have to jump out.
Okay, Michael, would you be able to hang and admin?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and yeah, actually, you are a host on the Zoom account too, or so. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to make you host, and then just
Okay.
let me know if you see a stop button where the recording icon is in the top left. Let's see. The price. Okay.
There's
You
a
should be a host now.
Okay. Along the bottom, I have pause, stop recording.
Okay, so that should be good.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that way, you know, like if people have a question, we could just direct them to Salon 77 and even put a, you know, timestamp reference or whatever. Cool, awesome. So, yeah, you guys sort of take it from there.
I just wanted to say I was lucky enough to see Karen's world, and the resolution on her artworks is not only really great, but if you angle your body so that you're standing close to the art and looking up at it, there's recession into space that is so clear and so good. I was really enthralled. So I just wanted to say that CYBERIANA is a 3D example of the Techspressionism community in cyberspace. And the town square is a place to meet and exchange ideas. And that there's a kind of inclusivity to Techspressionism that you can see a representation of in the concept of a town square and a place for dialogue among artists from all over the world. And we were lucky. We had about 75 artists apply, and we have them from countries all over the globe. Tommy couldn't be here, unfortunately, today to answer technical questions about Mozilla Hubs, but Michael is our resident guru, so I'm going to pass it to him.
Thanks, Renata. I'm not sure exactly how we can be most useful to everybody. So I guess right now, let's get some questions asked. So I just saw Sahar put her hand up. So what would you like to ask, Sahar?
Hi everyone. Hi Michael. Thanks. I want to ask, how can we upload videos to Hubs, first of all, and then I was not able to. I didn't receive the templates link, so I created a new room, just like what Karen did. And can I use? Yeah, I published it to web first, and then it didn't look like what I was expecting, so I created another room. And should we should our space be like a closed area, or can it be open, and how it will be linked to Siberian main hall, because I didn't see the hall.
Okay. We have a form that we're asking all the artists to fill out. And in that form, we're looking for the URL that Spoke generates, or I guess through then Hubs, what that address is. And we need that because we have a database that's going to connect to each artist's room or gallery, however you want to think of it. And then that'll get put into and connects through the doors that are in the main area. So if you don't have that form, I guess either Renata or Tommy will need to get that to you. And if anybody else is missing, hasn't gotten that, you should.
I think it's Renata, it's the form that I posted, right? So it's
okay.
Techspressionist.com/CYBERIANA, which I'm going to put in the chat. But awesome. You could also get there quickly by going to the homepage, the Techspressionism.com homepage, and clicking on the CYBERIANA banner. And I added the form there. And then that those responses should go directly to the team.
Awesome.
I believe.
Thanks, Colin. I'd forgotten you had done that. So yeah, awesome. And then the other thing that we need from everybody is an image that's going to go onto the door that's in that public space that then the person who wants to go visit you kind of clicks on. So again, that's formatted in a portrait orientation. Now, in regards to your question, Sahar, about if it needs to be closed or open, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by open. Like, there's no boundary, or
like Karen has her room inside a box, a closed box, but I created like an open space, like a forest.
Okay. Do you have, but I'm assuming there's like a bounding box around the edge of the forest, or not?
No.
So they could just keep wandering out beyond the edge of the forest?
Yes, I think.
I don't know I don't know how problematic that is for the Hubs engine overall. And also just for the end user, we need the doorway to go. There needs to be the mechanism that the person can click on to get back to the main central area.
Oh, okay.
So if you're creating your own space, you need to have a link that goes back to the main area. Okay. Otherwise, there's no way for somebody to go to your space and then get back into the town square. Does that make sense, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think the idea of having a closed boundary is good. I've had people get lost inside their own room. A guy yesterday was stuck inside a gigantic stone that he had installed in his room, and I had to fly him out of there. So having a boundary would probably be helpful.
I agree.
Also, with regard to the video question, I think we have to talk maybe a little bit about the file size. The video I've uploaded successfully is small, it's short, and it doesn't have sound. Karen might be able to speak to that.
Well, so there's a couple issues with video. File size may be an issue, but the other thing, and the video that I have successfully playing Renata has both sound and image. So because I have not been able to find a lot of the technical stuff behind the scenes for hubs and spoke, this is anecdotal just to me, but I've managed to host a number of videos that I've been able to post successfully from YouTube and using my link from there into my space. And it does stay consistent. The challenge is going through there. Sometimes it takes a little time for it to completely load. And that may be an issue that people are running into. I don't know.
I have a question about the very beginning of uploading. What I'm doing is going to the menu on the right where it has image, 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 and then there's a video option, and I'm choosing that. Is that the correct way?
That's fine. You can do that. You can also go to the menu at the bottom of the screen and add, just click on picture or click on video, and then you get to place it where you want. It's the video widget or the image widget are, part of the spoke set of things that you can do. Did I forget anything else that you asked, Sahar? Or
I tried YouTube link, but it did not work, and
okay.
I was wondering how should we upload videos, or in which website?
Because I do have a YouTube channel, I used YouTube and that is working for me. I don't know if anybody else has done videos successfully in another way. So this again is my limit in knowing what works behind the scenes. So that's why I'm saying this is only anecdotal information. I know somebody has tried Vimeo and that hasn't worked, and I don't know what the issue is, but I don't have a Vimeo channel. I've not tried playing with that. So that part I don't know. But I know that YouTube can work because I've got it working in my space.
Karen, can you speak to that?
Just took me half an hour to find my raised hand. Yes. I think, and that's going back 3 or 4 weeks, so the memory's not that good. I think my files were like 8 or 10 megs or in that range, very low. I put my animations very short seconds, that would be on like a loop, and then I put them into Handbrake, and I got them down as far as I could go. Because it seems like Renata was saying, once they're in Mozilla hubs, if you get up close to them, there's this strange sense of 3D that happens to the animations. It's almost a little bit of depth relief in them. So whatever their player is kind of making up for the small size that you wouldn't play on your computer screen. I don't know if that makes sense. If you can get it down small.
Okay, what about GIFs?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, what about GIFs?
What was the question?
What about GIFs?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that is readable by the engine. I'm not positive.
Okay.
What I've been
Yeah.
doing is I've just been going to Chat GPT or Google and just asking those questions, and it'll come back with the specs.
Okay, well, Canva, which I don't use often, has a way where you can convert a GIF to an MP4. You can convert a GIF to a video, very quickly. So that should save some time.
Zahar, were we able to answer all of your questions?
Yes, thanks. And I was able to upload GIFs through imager.com, but the URLs as image or video didn't work in Hubs. So I don't know how to upload.
Can you say
GIF.
that again? You upload them to IMG.
I uploaded GIFs in imager.com, and that's the IMG.
Yeah.
Yes. And but I don't know how to link it to Hubs. I use both image and video assets, but it didn't work.
I've successfully used IMGUR. What I do is I upload the image and I make it full screen on the site on IMGUR, and then I right click on it and copy the address. And that's worked for me for video and image. And it's free. It's free and it's super easy to upload to IMGUR. It's really quick to make an account, and it's a very responsive thing. Does that help?
Yes, it helps for images, but not the GIF.
Well, I haven't tried one, but I will, and I'll get back to you, Sahar. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, what's the URL you're talking, or the site you're talking about, Renata?
It's imgur.com. And
Okay.
it's a free hosting site for your images on the web.
Because I couldn't get any of my links to work. I couldn't get YouTube to work. I couldn't get, I was trying to link them to my website. That wouldn't work. So.
Yeah, Tommy mentioned IMGUR a while back, and I'm sorry that we didn't promote it or publicize it more, but it's really, really user friendly.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
It does work.
I put it in the chat. I put IMG.
I have a question, comment.
Okay, Cynthia.
I have no problem with, getting a URL and the rest of it. My problem is with the template itself. I had loaded up some images and nothing showed in my assets. I also lost a wall in my room. I also tried to place images on the wall, and sometimes they disappeared depending on if I pushed it too far or not. And so that is my issue. And then when I published it, it looked different. The way things had been set up looked different.
Okay, so you are pointing out some of the challenges of working in a 3D interface. So do we? This is a question that if we need a little bit of a tutorial, I'm fine doing that. So I don't know if that's an issue other people are running into as well. But if we need to go over that, I'm perfectly fine doing a short tutorial on that.
Well, I, for one, would be very happy. I know Susan DeTroy is also interested. There may be other people out there that might want to tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, is anybody else in the same boat in terms of just working with the interface?
I'm sure once it actually stupid file load, I'll be in the same boat because I don't think technology likes me very much. So I think I'll be
Okay.
Same here.
I mean, I can go ahead. I can go ahead and share my screen if you want me to do that, and I can walk you through some of that.
Sure.
Let me bring up Spoke first, and then I'll share my screen. So I'm going to what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my current version of my space that I've been working on. I'm nearly done with it. I consider it pretty simple. So all right, so let me can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. All right, so here's the thing that's challenging. Can you see over here? I clicked on this black and white piece of art, and you can see the arrows. I don't like to use the arrows very much, other than for gross placement. The real trick is in using the numbers that deal with position, rotation, and scale. And Cynthia, have you played with those at all? Are you familiar with that part of the interface?
I did try a little bit of that.
Okay, so the trick is you want to, like, for things with the walls, the big thing for me is if I click on the wall itself, I can see the positioning of the X and the Y and the Z. And what I want to do is I'll write those numbers down if I need to. And I'm suggesting perhaps, looking at that and recording those numbers first, because then when I click on the artwork, I can see comparatively where this is. And typically what I'm either dealing with is the X or the Z, because the Y is the up and the down, how high vertically or how low vertically something is. But depending on which wall orientation, you're looking at trying to get close to the X or the Z component, depending on which side you're on of the four walls. And if you get too close, for instance, if I click on the arrow here, and you look at the number, what I'm changing is the X number here. Here it's at 0, minus 0.5, minus 1, 1.5, minus 2. Now, all of a sudden it disappears. That's because it's behind the wall from my perspective. If I bring it back, now it's floating outside the wall. If I orient over here, I can see that it's sticking out. I'm looking at the edge there. It's kind of sticking out away from the wall. This painting here, the X is minus 1.7. This is minus 1.5. So it's actually out into the room a little bit further. So if I click on the X and I use my keyboard, if I go 1.6, it's a little closer. 1.7, minus 1.7, it's closer. Minus 1.8, it's almost flush against the wall. Minus 1.9, it's behind the wall. So I tend not to be like right next to the wall. I'll come out just slightly a little bit further so that it looks like it's on the wall, but if somebody steps away, they're not going to get that fuzzy thing where if it's right flush against the wall, the rendering engine doesn't know whether to render the wall in front or the image. And so you get this kind of tessellation sort of weird look going on. Is this helping at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And then for how high or down, I'll go to the Y component and then I just play with the numbers there. But the main thing is, if you're trying to match the walls, you want to know what the coordinates of the wall that you're trying to match is. And the easiest way to do it is to click on the wall itself, and you'll know that you're on the wall because it'll tell you it's the wall, whatever the wall designation is, and then you can click on the numbers there. Now, the tricky thing is, the wall that I'm clicking on here, which is the one that says "Call me Ishmael," that back wall there. If you look at rotation, you'll see that it says the X is minus 180 degrees, and the Z is minus 180. So if I place artwork on that wall, if I don't have the orientation for the art, including this minus 180, your art's going to appear mirror imaged. So you need to include that orientation. Otherwise, it's going to look to the reverse of what you normally think that it should be. So that's something you need to pay attention to as well. Does that make sense?
Let me get this straight. On the Ishmael wall,
Yes. All right.
you
So
check the wall's coordinates, and then your art should mirror the wall
no.
coordinates.
Okay. Here's what I'm saying is, if I click on this one, a dying black sun, I just clicked on that art. Okay. If you look at the rotation for my artwork, it says minus 180 for the X rotation and minus 180 for the Z rotation.
Okay, yes.
If I don't do that, if I had it the normal way of 0, 0, now see how it's reversed? See how this image now is mirrored opposite of what it was just a moment ago? The real orientation is minus 180 for this wall, because what happens is the world coordinate. I know I'm getting really technical here, but you need to know what the orientation of the wall is. So when your artwork goes up on that wall, it matches that wall's orientation. Otherwise, it'll look wrong. It'll look the reverse of what it should be. It's just a trick of a 3D environment. It's something you have to understand. But the wall will tell you, like if I click on this wall here, the wall that I just clicked on to the right, if you look at rotation there, it's 0, 90, and 0. And that 90 means if I were to bring the dying black sun forward, if I were to bring it forward more, see, I need to rotate it if I want to put it on this wall to the right. Do you see how it just rotated a little bit?
Yes.
So now if I were to move it, if I were to actually move it, I could get it onto this wall. But its rotation to be on this back wall, that needs to be at 0. Does that, am I making sense to you or not?
Yeah, I have a question about navigation in general. You're working on a Windows machine with a particular type of mouse, and I take it you're holding your mouse down as you're dragging the works.
I'm using the scroll wheel.
Right, but on a Mac, the mouse doesn't have those capabilities, and navigation, I tend to, just mentioning this for those of you out there who are working on a Mac, you can use the arrow buttons, but it's not as easy as it is on a Windows machine.
Okay.
Can I interject here? Can
Yeah,
you
please.
just, unfortunately, the Zoom window is over the keyboard, over the direction, so I can't see, but if you put your cursor on a Mac between the X and the number box and sort of press there, you get a sideways
Yeah.
thing. And
See, I'm
it
doing that. I'm
slides
doing
the
that right here.
numbers.
Yeah, I'm doing it right here, Karen.
Perfect, because you don't need the keyboard to change the numbers and orientation. It's right there in that window, the properties window.
Basically, you click on the X or the Y or the Z, and you'll see a little kind of side arrow to arrow that lets you play with, like I'm doing with the image right now, the dying sun.
I don't see the X, Y, and Z. I'm viewing this on my iPhone, and I don't see
Oh, wow.
coordinates.
Well, oh my gosh. Well, then that's problematic.
Okay, so I have to switch to my machines. I have to go to my laptop.
Yeah, to be honest, Fernanda, if you do not have this side interface here viewable or usable, this is going to be a pain in the ass to try to get to work.
Yeah, I'm
Because
I'm
it's
sensing that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have another question, Michael.
Sure.
I hope I'm not ending someone else's answer. However, on my template, I see images and there are little red triangles with exclamation points in them.
Yes.
And I can't seem to get rid of them, or I don't know what it means.
Okay, so typically, I was getting those as well, and usually that means that the image is too large. The recommendation is that the images need to be less than 2,000 pixels in either the X or the horizontal or the vertical direction.
Okay.
And that's, you can definitely go smaller. Now,
Can you show us at some point uploading an image?
pardon me?
Can you show us at some point uploading an
Oh
image?
yeah, sure. I can do that. So for instance, if say if I wanted to replace this, now I need to to do the upload. Okay, let me. I need to bring this out. So so you need to have, before you upload anything, you need to know what the URL for the image is. It needs to have been saved somewhere, either using IMGUR or, in my case, I'm using my Squarespace account, and I've got all my images saved on Squarespace, and so I use the link there. But basically, if you go to image URL, you can see here my Squarespace account URL. But if I go all the way here and I just hit delete, now it's blank. And if I want to include a new URL, I can type that in here, or I can do a cut and paste to put right into that spot. So let me do that. Just a second here. I'm quickly going to my asset library. Let me pick an image. Okay, let me pick this one. So let me come back. Okay, so here, now you can see how the white and so black image has now gone away. And I'm going to, so I did a cut and paste. So now I've got a new image URL in here. And then all I have to do is just click off of it. And now you see the new image.
You said you clicked off of it. Does that mean you hit enter?
You can hit enter. I just click, for me, I don't even worry about enter. I just take my mouse cursor and I click in a blank space. And it's the same thing as hitting enter.
And now instead of a red triangle, you have a yellow triangle.
So See this red, yellow triangle now?
Yes.
If I hover over it, it tells me the image is too large. So I know that if I wanted to use that to be as efficient as I can in the execution of my space, I'll want to go in and make a slightly smaller image so it doesn't exceed the file size that it recommends.
Okay.
Did that answer your?
That helps me. I also wanted to ask, I had trouble getting rid of Tommy's images. I would delete, his URL and try to put my URL in. Somehow I wasn't losing his image. I don't know why, or maybe he had several and I thought it was not the one I deleted. So
okay, I did not have that problem, so I'm not sure. In fact, I ended up just kind of deleting most of his images and just starting over and placing my own. But I'm not saying that that's a better solution, but yeah, if you actually deleted the URL and then you put in your own, that should work. There shouldn't be anything else. And then it's just from there, it's a matter of placing it where you want it to be.
okay. And are there enough image slots up there, or do you have to create new image slots if you have more?
That's a good question, and I created new image slots. So and I don't know, have you tried doing that?
No, that's what
Okay, so if you see where I've got my cursor over image down in here on the bottom?
Right, elements.
Yes, in elements. So I click on image. Now there's this blank image widget that's following my cursor. So if I just click over here, now you see that I need to reorient it. So this is where I have to do the 90 degrees. And now it's behind the wall, so I need to bring it forward. And then if I wanted to, for instance, since I saved the other URL, I'm just going to include it here as well. So now I have two images, but basically I created a new widget, an image widget. Then I have to figure out where I want to place it, how big I want it. And then there you go.
So how do you know that it's behind the wall?
Well, the easiest way to tell, Renata, is if I move it around and in the process of moving it, see how now you see like just the outline of the image, but you don't see the image?
Okay.
That means it's actually behind the wall, and I'll show you. You see how it's?
Yes, I see.
See back right? I'm going to try to get close in here to show. This is the fun of navigating in a 3D space, but as I get closer to the wall here, yeah, it's tricky. It's right back there. See, it's right behind the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And then the easiest way for me to know how to bring it forward is, since it's at -2, I'll go, let's try -1. It's already now way out here. So I can just keep playing with it. And I know that the 1.7, 1.8 is where I want to be. But now you can tell this one, this larger version, is at a scale of 1.8. And this smaller version is at a scale 1. So if I want to make it larger, all I have to do is play with the scale, and I can make it, you know, as large as I want to, that's appropriate. And the nice thing is, even when it's scaled up, there's a lot of detail.
Yeah.
The detail is very nice. And that's what everybody's been talking about is,
Can I say something, Michael, on the
Yeah,
topic
sure.
we were just talking about? Renata, when I first started using this, I was lost all over the place. And so what I found after a while by experimenting is that sometimes when you're going back towards the wall or away from the wall, I'm thinking I'm facing the wall and the piece is getting larger, but it's not. It's actually going back in space or coming forward. So I found constantly spinning, you know, I put something in and I'll just do a little rotation a little bit before I start doing something, because it tells me where that painting came in away from the wall. I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, Michael, maybe you can.
No,
but
it's the illusion that if you don't know where that object is in the three-dimensional space, it can feel like, oh, this is really, really large, or this is really tiny. And that's where you need to understand, again, where it's located in space, because, all right.
So when you're talking about rotation, Karen and Michael, you're talking about rotating the room.
The whole room.
The whole room, so you can see behind, where it's, how large it is, etc.
Right, because you may
Yes.
have your painting here and your painting here, and you brought one in the middle, and it says,
Yes.
oh, it looks fine. But
Yep.
if you spin, you realize, yeah, it looked the same size as all three, but when you spin the wall, you realize it's at 6 feet away from the wall, the one in the middle.
See,
You
now
have to
this,
push it back to get
yeah,
the
see
real
how
skin.
this smaller one now looks bigger. But the reality is, as I start to spin, you know, move around in the room, it's way forward. So as my camera is right here, you know, my eyes are right here, it looks bigger, but that's an illusion because it's closer to me, because it's sitting in the middle, you know, it's kind of floating in the middle of the room, where this guy back here is actually against that wall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that's the hard part of a 3D space, is you need to know where things are oriented in your room, or, you know, your gallery. And that's where these numbers, especially if you know you like where your walls are, you need to know the values of these positions and the rotations of the walls, because if you're placing things against them, they need to be close to the numbers here.
So the image placement, the image numbers for rotation must be the same as the rotation numbers for the wall.
Very close to it.
Or close to it.
The rotations need to be identical.
So if
Because
it's
the rotation tells you the facing of the wall.
okay, so if I want to put an image on that wall that has 0, 0, then 90.00, then 00, my image should have that set of rotation numbers.
Yes.
Very close to it.
It should be those should be the same.
Oh, identical. Okay.
Yes.
Image of the wall.
If I could interject, the picture itself, what Michael's talking about is the exact dimensions of the wall are like the paint on the wall. You don't want to put your picture there. You want it one step into the room just by a fraction. Otherwise, your picture is going to disappear in the gray paint.
Get it.
Right.
So, but the rotation has to
but
be
the
perfect.
orientation needs to match.
Yes. So how do you spin the room?
So, okay, that's a great question, Bernada. So for me, and again, I'm on a PC. So again, those who are Mac users, you may do things differently. Do you see my cursor here?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if I do a left click, and then I'm just moving my mouse,
Right.
I get an orientation change like this. So I can see,
I see.
and then if I want to actually move, I can use the wheel in the center of my mouse to go back and forward.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing that you can also do, which is helpful, is if I do a right click, then what it does is it uses my position as the rotation spot. And so now I can rotate exactly where I am in the room to look around in the room.
Right, okay. Okay, well, I use a PC-oriented mouse that I connect to my MacBook Pro via USB port. So I'll just make
Okay.
my instrument of choice while dealing with the CYBERIANA space.
That's exactly what Tommy does.
Mhm.
Okay. So I wanted to show just real briefly here, this image has actually, this is a video. And so I wanted to show, here's my URL for my YouTube video for it to play. Now it won't play in here. I'll need to, be in the actual hub space for it to actually play. But that's my video, and it does play fine. The other thing that I've done is that I have an audio file here that's kind of like a welcoming file, and I use SoundCloud to play audio, and SoundCloud is free and it works fine. So if there's anybody who's thinking of using audio and you don't have a way for hosting, go to soundcloud.com.
Hey, Michael, I'm going to have to take off, but feel free to continue as long as it's a good conversation.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, before you guys close out, either before or after the recording ends, if you can collectively decide on a new topic for Salon 78, and hopefully the person who suggests it will be the moderator. But I'll refer back to the end of the salon. Maybe if you just keep that in the recording, that would be the easiest. That way I could just look back at the end of the recording and kind of take it from there to build out a graphic and everything.
Okay.
Okay. All right, cool. Take care, everyone. Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate.
Yes.
Bye.
Happy Hanukkah.
Bye, Colin.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah.
I have another question if no one else does.
Well, I do. I
Well,
actually,
yeah, I have some questions too.
I have, I think I understand everything that Michael's doing, but I don't know how you got there. Is this like the URL that's at the top, hubs, mozilla.com spoke projects? Is that how you get on here?
Yes.
And then you work the software through that.
Yes, you
Don't have it on your computer.
yeah, if you haven't done this yet, I would definitely suggest, if you got Tommy's email with the instructions for how to start, that you follow that.
Okay.
And if you don't have that, we need to get that to you, because you basically need to create the account where you start with Spoke, and then you can use Tommy's template to begin. And that's the template that will open up the Spoke interface for you.
Oh, okay. All right. That was the original email they sent.
Renata, can you help me with that? Because I don't remember exactly. It's been a while now.
It's the second email.
Okay.
And if you don't have it, Cheryl, I can just right now, I can shoot it to you, okay?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I have a question about the overall sort of meta presentation of the galleries in CYBERIANA. I see here that you have several text presentations of this work, Michael.
Yes.
You have art book gallery, and then you
Yes.
have My Name is Ishmael. Okay, so overall, how are these galleries being named? Is there a uniformity to that? Do we name by project, or do we name by business superstructure, or do we name by author, by the creator?
That's a great question, and I would be happy if Renata or Stephen has any feeling on that, but Tommy, I think, is leaving it to everybody as to what your room or gallery or space is, if you want it according to your name. And then I don't necessarily see a uniformity, other than we've talked about keeping the stuff outside similar, with the kind of tying into the public space with the tile roofing and the public space arena around it. But internally, inside, we've really said, if you want to use the template as the minimum, and all you do is replace the images in there, and that's as far as you go because that's all you feel comfortable doing, then at least you've got a space within CYBERIANA. If you want to exercise a little bit more of your creativity and you want to add new things in, or you want to change some of the things, that's up to you. And so that's kind of the philosophy, I would say, that Tommy has brought to it. And as far as I could see, what Stephen and Renata and myself have kind of worked with as well. So does that kind of help answer?
Well, strategically, having a scattershot approach to nomenclature, or I guess I could better say signage, individual signage, disadvantages you. It disadvantages the project, and it disadvantages the artist's gallery space. And the way it does it is that it is not search engine optimized for continuity. For instance, if I have a gallery space that I want to have well known in CYBERIANA, it is useful for people who look for my work to know how to look for it. I have many different projects, but if I use the different projects to name the galleries, assuming it be more than one over time, then they're going to not be able to readily identify me, and that becomes a time factor. And time is money on the internet. People need ready identification. But if I call myself, I call my gallery space Vernada Lights, or I name it after my business, eGraphics Omni Media, then you have that anchor identification. And yet within the space itself, I can have a variation of projects to be presented without losing continuity. So strategically speaking, there's great advantage to giving an in-depth thought to how you're going to approach signage and how it will advantage or disadvantage the people within the space and the space itself in general. I mean, they're not going to get lost with CYBERIANA because, that's going to be constant. But to have all these other names and titles and stuff moving around and variable over time will disadvantage you in terms of developing search engine traction.
I mean, as far as I know, we don't have like something hard and fast. The way the sign up page or the way the page is set does focus on the artist and artist name, and so I would assume that that's kind of what we're following. But
Michael, I want to perhaps go back a few steps, because I must admit I didn't catch the beginning of this particular discussion, but we had a hard and fast decision that each artist would have a door in the town square with the same layout for the door, i.e. there would be a round window, there would be a portrait-sized artwork, and there would be the artist's name below. So everyone has the same presentation in the town square. It goes by your name. If you want to put your company name, that's welcome as well. That's all. And then everything else inside the spaces, the studios, is up to the individual artist. Does that help?
Well, it gives clarity as to what the initial vision was and what it is now, but I'm still thinking, I'm projecting into the future over time, that you may well have to tweak that for search engine purposes, or that search engine optimization may not be a concern, for the project, but it's something that's definitely on my mind, as a webmaster. So we'll see. I'll just figure it out for myself and then see how it plays and make sure that what I do put up is compliant with what's already been set forth.
I have another question about when you first go into the Mozilla Hub and you're in Spoke, and Tommy mentioned something about on the left-hand side, you got the little hamburger and there's a file save there. And he had suggested doing that and then afterwards publishing, or should they be done at the same time at the end when you're finished?
okay, that is an excellent question, Cynthia. And I am a believer of saving often. And the reason I say that is when you make changes, when you make additions, when you change something, it's easier if you save than if something happens, if you make a mistake, you haven't done like 50 different things and then you've lost what you've done. So it lengthens the process very slightly, but I tend to save and then I'll publish and then I'll look at the example again. So I'll walk through after I save, at the end of the save process, it asks you if you want to enter your seed in Hubs. And that way I can go in Hubs and make sure that I'm happy with the change or changes that I've made. And I can, certify to myself that what I've done is exactly what I wanted it to do. Maybe I'll look at it and I'll think, oh, I should really tweak this up a little higher or lower, or a little more to the left or a little more to the right. But having that back and forth process really helps me that if I make too many changes and then I save and I'm not liking things, I won't remember how I changed things previously. So I'm a believer in saving often and reviewing those changes.
So you're saying after I go in for the first time and I do my thing, I go up to the hamburger and I do file save. And then I say to myself, let me look again what I have done by going out of the room and reviewing it, just like you do with a website.
You can do that. And what I often do is you'll see this blue button that says publish to Hubs.
Right.
I won't even go to the hamburger. I'll just go up to here and I'll click on that, publish to hubs. And it'll bring this up. And if I want to save and publish, I'll click on that. If I don't, because I don't want to make the changes, I canceled here because I've screwed my gallery up here.
Yes. Okay, so it's file, save, and then if you're happy with the changes by reviewing them and seeing what it looks like to the public, then you can go to publish, and then that finalizes the save.
Yeah, and when you go to publish, that'll let you actually go into hubs and see it as an end user. And that's really helpful because oftentimes things look good still in here, and you may realize, oh, this is still sticking out of the wall a little bit too much. I want to push this closer. And actually seeing it in hubs versus seeing it in spoke can be really instrumental in making those final changes or the tweaks that you like better.
So the reason my view of it in hubs was not the same as what it looked like when I was working on it is because I had not tweaked those images enough, put them where they should be, and instead I'm getting to see that they're floating. So then I go back and I rework it. All right, so you help me to understand why what I see in hubs is not the same.
Correct, because what happens is when you're working, if you're working in here and you're trying to do everything from one perspective, this may look fine here, this may look fine here, and that looks okay, and that looks okay, but I need to actually walk through the space to see now my perspective is different here. And if this particular image were sticking out too far, I may not have noticed it when I was closer to this side of the room, but once I get here, I could see, oh gosh, this is sticking out too far. I need to push it closer to the wall. And that's where sometimes going actually into hubs can help you see those discrepancies that you might have been blind to in spoke if you don't really move through the spoke spaces as readily as you do in the hub space. I mean, it's the same space. It's just looking at it from the end user versus looking at it from the person creating the interface, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
Are those arrows functional? The arrows that are emanating from the artwork, are they functional? Can you click on them?
Yes.
And they will move forward, backward, or whatever?
So Bernita, can you see that this green arrow all of a sudden becomes brighter now with my little cursor over it?
Yes.
So that lets me know it's functional, and it will, you see how I'm moving it up and down?
So it moves vertically.
Yes.
And so now click on the red one. Let's see what that does.
That one goes in.
Okay, in and out the wall.
Yep.
Okay, and
the blue one goes left and right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's more user friendly than the mouse thing, I think. Maybe.
And again, this will get you close. The numbers will give you precision. This will give you, I'm close to where I want to be. This feels close, but let me play with the numbers to make sure how it's looking with respect to the actual wall itself. That's why these numbers in the side here give you precision. And as Karen LaFleur had mentioned, if you want to use the slider instead of just typing in the numbers, all you have to do is click on here and you'll see that sliding here, I'm actually changing the numbers in that interface as well. So it depends on what works for you. There's several different ways to play around with this. But the main thing is getting the right precision so that something that looks like it's fine isn't actually sticking out into the room or isn't the reverse of the image the way you want it to actually be. So, that's some of the stuff you need to to be able to deal with. And then the other thing that I've got a lot of in here is actual text, and it works very similarly to the images. I don't know why it's called Troika text, but that's what it is. If you click on here on Troika text, then you can create a text. And again, you have to worry about the orientation, you can worry about the size, and then you type in what it is you want. And the width of how much text you can put on a line, you can control. That's what I did here. You can see in here all the text that I had to type in. I basically had to set how wide my paragraphs are, because if it's too wide, the text will go out into the room here. That's not on this surface that I created.
Michael, I'm going to have to jump off, but
Okay.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the opening is going to take place in the town square on December the 30th. That's a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. We will send you an email reminding you about the party. We hope you could all come with your avatar, and looking forward to seeing you then.
Thanks, Renata.
Thanks, Renata. Will you have, well, according to what Renata just said, I was going to ask, in light of the fact that the learning curve for various members might be, steep or not, or for those who are struggling, is there flexibility in the opening date that would allow them time necessary to more fully get on board? Or is the opening date hard and fast, and those who don't learn within the time frame have to wait, or maybe just roll out as the longevity unfolds?
That's an important question. It's one that we have talked about. So here, I'm speaking just for myself. This is not an official statement at all. So I think right now we are asking for people to get their form filled out and sent in to us like a week from tomorrow. I think the date is the 15th. My guess is if enough artists are still struggling to get their spaces done, and that doesn't happen, it's going to be up to probably Tommy to figure out whether or not what that means for the opening. So I don't have my feeling is, Verneda, that it's going to be driven by the community. whether or not we have everybody sufficiently along so that their spaces are in a shape that people are happy with. And I don't know what the answer is to that. That's why I wanted to have several tutorial sessions. And that's why I felt that doing something like this today would be helpful. But I have no idea how far along everybody is at this point. So my feeling is personally that if we don't have an overwhelming number of the artists ready to show, that we'll probably need to push this off a bit. But I don't know that. We're operating under the assumption right now that December the 30th is a go.
Well, it looks from the sounds of, from the feedback here, I'm just guessing now, that the Mozilla learning experience is a bit steep,
Yes,
and it may be more steep for some than others.
yes,
But I think it's fair to say it challenges everyone. And it's not just an easy ride.
correct.
So it's not WordPress, and even WordPress has its challenges and whatnot. But
Now this is a level up.
yeah, oh yes, it is. Very much so. Because Mozilla is still evolving anyway in terms of its user
That's true.
friendliness.
That's true.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah, so it's I don't know.
to be honest, I don't know how hard and fast that deadline is. And because Tommy was the originator of this concept,
Right.
you know, and he's not here, I'm
Right.
uncomfortable saying this is the way
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely right. Yeah.
But I'm just trying, as somebody who has been one of the four working on this, and because of my experience in the game industry working with 3D environments, I have been a proponent that this is going to probably take longer to get done than what the others have thought.
Right.
But I don't know, you know, and so my feeling is, I think the community, if half the artists have not been able to get something that they're happy with, you know, then I think that makes the decision something really important, because, you know, we're trying to make this a community space, and we need to have enough people for that to be viable.
Right.
And something that feels like it's a positive.
Yeah. One way you could hold on to the structure the time structure that you currently have would be to roll out the project in iterations.
Yeah, we may do that.
Yeah, you can do the soft opening, call it maybe on the 30th.
Yeah.
And then a month later, another iteration.
Right.
Until it's fully occupied.
Yeah, and the challenge is, Renata, is that it's very hands-on to incorporate changes. So it's not an automated process. Tommy or whoever's going to be handling the database has to do physical entries of here's the information, here are the links, and all of that for it to work. So what we were planning is that once we're up and running, that we would have periodic updates. You know, if we got everything past the soft launch, maybe we do have a couple of updates that are monthly, but then from there, we would probably do quarterly updates, because there's an intensive aspect to making the updates. But so that's kind of where we're at in behind the scenes.
Well, I agree with everything that Bernada mentioned, and Michael, I understand your feelings and why they have to be that way. So I'm hoping, you know, that either there's a soft opening or that the opening is postponed. Again, we don't know how many people have already submitted to Tommy even.
Yeah, I don't know that.
That would be interesting and indicative, I would think, of where we're going with this.
Yeah.
And I certainly do not want to put something out that I'm not proud of, simply to be ready for December 30th.
Well,
to that, this is the most difficult month of the year in terms of holidays and being busy. And so I've been working on this along with Judy Jacobs, put a lot of time into trying to figure it out. So I haven't waited till today to say, well, I'm going to give this a try.
Right.
So,
no, and you're not alone. You're not alone in that, Cynthia, at all. Which is why, for me, having tutorials, I wanted to have some tutorials before today.
Yeah, that would have been
just so it wasn't feeling rushed to try to make that deadline of the 15th. and that just didn't come about, unfortunately.
Yeah, this would have been much better. This type of session, ideally, because hindsight is always 2020,
Yes.
would have taken place 2 months ago.
Yes, I
And
agree.
at the very least 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I feel your pain, Renata. I understand, and that's been my voice to the group. And it won't surprise me if the launch changes, but it may not, and we may only have, a few things up and running as a very soft launch. And then, but it's a valiant effort. It's a good effort. I'm really happy we're doing this, but it's not like putting a website together.
It certainly is not.
And I'm really grateful for everybody. I'm grateful for everybody at least making the attempt. And I think this is where over the next week, whenever the 15th rolls around, in 8 days, this is where the voices in the community are going to have to say, we need a lot more time, or we're not there yet. And that's where I think the evaluation is going to have to come, is depending on what the feedback is from everybody.
Where and how can we express it? I mean, feedback will be, they don't have.
I think this has to go directly to Tommy.
I sent an email when I first was having problems. I sent an email to the CYBERIANA.Techspressionist.com. So the email that you got your information from, that's where I sent it to. And so I think if everyone just, if you're having problems and it's not working for you and you're not going to be ready, I think you just need to be really upfront with them about that. And then, like Michael said, if there are enough people for whom that's the case, then maybe things will change. But I also know that they're already advertising the CYBERIANA opening on Techspressionism. So they may not want to change it for whatever reason. In which case some people may, like myself, may just be like, it isn't going to happen. I'll do it another time maybe, but not this time. We'll see. Now that I've just had this little tutorial, I'm like a little more hopeful that I could actually make it work. But it's still, I'm one of the people who's at the bottom of the mountain right now. So I got to get to the top.
The other thing, and this is not a great solution, but the very barest minimum is if you still wanted to have a presence in CYBERIANA for the launch, would be to have your name, the image that you want on the door, and a link to your web page, or a link to something that expresses, your CYBERIANA space is coming, whatever it is. And that would be the bare minimum. That way, if people click on your doorway in the town square, that at least it's active. Even though it doesn't take you to your 3D space, they know you're part of this. They can go to your website. You can advertise on your website that you're part of the CYBERIANA thing. And that's the bare minimum. That doesn't satisfy me, but it's something. It at least shows that you're participating, and it's like, your space is coming. I'm hoping that you can get there and have an actual space before the soft launch, but those are kind of the tiers. Is your space is done, you've got your doorway and it goes to your website, but that's kind of the at least I'm in the space sort of thing.
That sounds like a good idea.
But that was something I told Tommy that we had, at least at a minimum, we needed to be able to do. So if somebody wasn't ready or they didn't have time, that at least they're part of the experience, they're in the space, and that we know that they will be part of it at some point. And at least that we don't want all 75 artists just linking to their website, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having a 3D space. But if you can't be ready, that it's at least your presence is still in there.
Michael, both Judith and I are sharing a room, so we would give Tommy 2 names and our image and a link to the website. See, that presents another issue.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know what the resolution to that would be. Because the image is going to have, the image on the door is going to have the link. And we can only have one link as far as I know.
Okay, well, what about a landing page? If they built a landing page,
yeah,
that will unify the
correct. If you did a landing page where both of you presence are on there, that then could go to your individual web pages, that's fine. You could do something like that too. So,
and what about the name? Can 2 names be on the door?
As far as I know, 2 names is fine having on the door, I believe. I don't know how much space there is for the name on the door, so that's something you probably should ask directly. I would suggest sending an email out pretty soon on that question.
Okay.
Before we lose too many of us, we have to decide what next meeting's title is. Hate to bring up a bad subject, but
yeah, he did ask us to do that. How about the new year? Anybody have any good ideas for the next subject?
Well, what were some of the things that we talked about in the co-working session? I know that during our discussions we had.
Oh yeah.
There was like text and art, or text and art, or something like that. And then there was another one. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I can't either.
Text and art is a good one.
Yeah, let's try that. I will email Colin and tell him that's what we decided.
And I would say that going off of Karen's, so our discussion of fast fiction or what was it called? Flash fiction or sudden fiction?
Oh, yeah.
But the text doesn't necessarily have to be incorporated into the art. It can be part of the
narrative
of the art or something. Yeah. Like Karen did some things where she had a short narrative that was associated with the image, but they weren't meshed together.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a good idea.
I have a last question, Michael.
Yeah, hi, Sahar.
When you want to publish your room to the hubs, should you check both options, that when you want to save and publish, like allow remixing with Creative Commons CC _BW3?
So
you have to, there are 2 boxes that you have to check.
Yes. So here's the publish.
Yes.
So when you do the save and publish, the next box will give you I believe the link, if I remember correctly. But I don't want to do that here because I've screwed up my gallery, and I don't want to screw up my gallery.
No, I mean two boxes, empty check boxes.
Oh,
So
I'm
what-
sorry.
If you click publish, yeah.
When you click on publish, there were those two check boxes that you had the option.
Oh,
boxes.
There. So they allow remixing and they allow
oh, here.
Allow Mozilla to promote my scene.
I have no idea.
And what is remixing with create?
I don't know whether or not how that would impact anything.
Yeah.
I don't want remixing. I don't want anybody messing with my images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be a I don't have a good answer. I don't know technically whether that would make any impact on your space, Sahar.
Okay.
I don't know if Tommy might know that. So that may be a question to send to the CYBERIANA website or to the CYBERIANA email.
That might explain so when I open up Spoke, I don't get edit in Spoke, I get remix in Spoke. So could it be the link that I have? Because I use the link that Tommy sent.
Right.
So it could be that somehow that was checked off to allow people to make it into a template, to allow people to make changes or something.
You know, that's a good question, and I don't know, because I think when I work in Spoke as well, I think I get remix. I don't think I get edit.
Okay.
Because that was one thing that freaked me out at first, was because in Tommy's example it shows edit.
Yeah.
And when I went in, I remember I got remix, and maybe that's because since we're using that as a template, we're actually remixing what was initially given to us to use. I'm speculating, Deanne. I'm not positive.
I did in my email, my original email, I said, is my problem because mine says remix and not edit? And Renata didn't think that was the issue. So
no, it's not.
Yeah, so it's just my own, tech issues I have to sort out. But yeah, this was very helpful. So thank you for going through all of that information.
Yes, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're definitely welcome. If we need to do another session sometime next week, I'd be willing to run another tutorial. The only problem is I don't know when we would do that and who might be interested. So is there any kind of consensus here that we should have another tutorial, or do you think you have enough to kind of get you going?
Could we potentially, just for this 1 week, co-op the co-working?
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I thought too.
Of course,
Okay.
I want to ask Cynthia Beth Rubin.
Okay.
Where she began the program, and see if she's amenable.
If that's the case, Cynthia, would you talk to Cynthia?
I will. I'm gonna.
Okay. If it's the case, we could do that. Send me an email and I'd be happy to run another tutorial. That would be Tuesday at noon Eastern.
Right. That's correct.
The Techspression, the link
And-
to that session is on the Techspressionism main page if you scroll down.
Yeah, and that's why I was going to suggest that we should publicize it so more people would know.
Yeah.
So, all right. So how would we publicize it so more people would know? Techspressionism Facebook page.
Yeah, we could get Renata to also post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
I could email Colin and see what he thinks too.
Yeah,
Since I need to, I'll email Colin just to let him know about text and art or art and text.
Okay, so I'll contact Cynthia and mention next Tuesday, and we'll go from there.
Okay,
And then I'll contact you, Michael, as to what happened.
okay. Yeah, unless there's any, like remaining questions, I'm a little toasty at this point.
I think we all are.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks.
thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep, it's been real, everybody.
All right. Good luck, everyone. Maybe I'll see you on Tuesday.
Yes.
Sure.
For real.
Find out.
Knock on wood, y'all.